have dark sides of our consciousness. Well, maybe if God is a projection of human consciousness, could God not have a dark side? And could that dark side not be Lucifer or Satan? But the preacher here is saying, you see, that you are despised. There's no love involved in any of this, which is a perfect proof of what I'm talking about. I'm merely analyzing this and saying that that's right. At least this guy is sort of in a way admitting it, that there is no love, no humanity, no empathy, nothing involved, because this necrotic. These people have murdered their inner psyche, their self. And if you're dealing with these people and putting them in charge of the world order, if you're putting them in the positions of power, then don't come around and tell me that nothing is changing or that things are getting worse. Because, you know, the oily rag that you're trying to clean the window with is making the window dirty.
Yeah.
There's a same guy, Jonathan Edwards, the New England Calvinist preacher. He says, as innocent as children seem to us. Now he's addressing children. If they are out of Christ, which God knows what that means, if they're out of Christ, they are not so in God's sight, but are young vipers, and are infinitely more hateful than vipers, and are in a most miserable condition. So in other words, if you're not buying into their gig, because this Christ must be full of hate as well, then, because if you're not in Christ, then you're already an abhorrence. You're an abhorrent. There's no Christ in you. You got to come to Christ. Christ is, remember the whole idea of displacing your own Godhead. Now there's no self, so there's no self to be enlightened. You can't be enlightened in the same way that the Egyptian mystics, you see, the mysticism of old was that you were the one who would become Osiris or the enlightened one. You are the one to become radiant. And the way you're going to do it is by living truly, being highly moral in your own life and your own actions, and by going through a lot of rites of passage and facing what life throws at you. Now, you turn that all off, you don't worry about it, because some other guy called Jesus, he's done it all for you. And by the way, you're loathsome, but it's up to him whether he's going to forgive you or not, or rather the church, remember, because we said it's an illusion to think that Christianity is of God. So this thing is born out of this absence of selfhood. There's no self to matriculate, there's no self to become enlightened. There's only a non-self, which is the Eastern nirvana concept, that you just merge back into the abyss. Now here's the most, and again, I'm a person who likes to point out the contradictions, because the Bible actually refutes these preachers. The Bible actually contains the gems of the truth.
There's so much in there. I mean, you can. It feels like you can always find a passage that actually contradicts the other one. You know,
but what grabs me is that Jesus himself said, "Know ye not yourselves what is right?" Jesus in the Gospel says, "Know ye not yourselves what is right?" How do they explain that? That now you need all these other people. If you know, in Romans 1:20 it says, "The invisible things of God." This is Paul. "The invisible things of God are clearly seen and understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead." He's saying by looking at the things that are made in nature, you'll learn all there is to know. Wait a minute. You don't need church, you don't need religion, because by a mere observation of that which is made, because it's been made by God, your Creator, a true and unadulterated study of that is already religion. Right? Paul in his I think it's the epistles, he says, the Gentiles who have not the Bible, it might be the book of Acts, the Gentiles who have not the Bible do by nature the things contained in the Bible. Now that is a heavy piece of information. They're already telling you that the Gentiles are the ones who don't have access, you see, they're the ones who have to be converted. But yet St. Paul is saying, the Gentiles who have not the Bible are doing by nature the things contained in the Bible.
So you don't need the Bible.
You don't need it. You can have it or you don't have it. And that's what I've said about the Constitution. It's what I've said about any doctrine, Magna Carta. What good are those documents when man himself has lost his psychic sovereignty? If man has no inner republic, if he's lost his constitutional sovereignty, if he's violated himself psychically, then what good is some piece of paper? You can bullhorn it to death. You can you see, scream it. You can buy 101 bumper stickers for your car. Let's get back to the Constitution. It doesn't mean a thing unless you have Constitution within you. Constitutions of law and society are based on human contracts of moral and virtuous relationships between men. You know what is breaking down in our society today, Henrik? Is that virtue. That is why you see it breaking down on the social, slightly higher macrocosmic level. it's because it is breaking down, and that involves a lot of mind control and other things. But ultimately, again, it's breaking down because man has lost his center. It's in his consciousness that he's losing his virtue, his morality, his conscience. So all the documents in the world will never work, and more so, you're going to engender then the kind of individuals that we see in society who will come in with their hammer and chisel and chip away at these documents and say we don't need them anymore. They'll do exactly what you've seen. They will eviscerate them, they will change them, they will modify them, they will rewrite them, they will rescript it, and they'll roll over your rights. They'll turn the whole system upside down, and people will accept it. They may verbally, it's cheap and easy to sit at the coffee shop going, what a terrible world we're living in. If those people themselves, you see, have lost their inner constitution. One of the most important things that happened back in the time of 1075 AD, Pope Gregory VII began instigating what came to be known as the Gregorian reforms. By way of his reforms, Gregory sought to permanently secure the sovereign power of the church. Okay, so this church, what we know as the church, got really much more cemented and strong in 1075. He strictly enforced celibacy amongst the bishops and priests. He prohibited marriage for all ordained churchmen, and he saw to it that the Pope would hitherto be free and above the law, as was the church itself. So you see, remember now they're removing themselves from the power. Don't we see that today? That they're removing themselves from the legal, constraints. Gregory wished to create his own new world order in which the Pope was the supreme ruler over all men and over all kings. Of course, as in other shows we've gone into, the Black Pope, the Pope, or let's be more specific, the Black Pope is the supreme ruler of the world. We're living under a system of this. And the people who have bought into this, John Chrysostom, one of the great Christians, meant to be this great saint, he said, the slave, now check this out, the slave should be resigned to his lot. In obeying his master, he is obeying God. So right from 1075 onwards, they're telling you that you must be obedient. And by obeying your master, that's any secular master, your lord, your baron, you see, the king, remember they're giving you political. They're saying by obeying any master that you have, you're obeying God. Look how well this works with politics. A 17th century preacher said, if there are people who abuse the authority of sovereigns and charge you unfair taxes, God allows this in order to enact his justice, to punish your sins and the ill use you make of your property. So in other words, if you're oppressed by some worldly demagogue, it's okay because you're such a damn sinner that God is permitting it. He's not permitting you to be free to fight back. This is another, you should just be happy with what you've got, and that the lord of the manor, the baron, the king is doing right. So when you see these potentates, Blair and Bush and all of these people getting up saying we are going to hammer you for you're the sinners, they're coming from that mindset. They don't mind depriving you of your jobs. They don't mind outsourcing your jobs. They don't mind, oppressing you and surveilling you. And you allow it because somewhere in the deepest part of your psyche, you do think you're a sinner. You have been programmed to believe this. Nietzsche said something fantastic. The Christian resolve to find the world ugly and bad has made it ugly and bad.
Yeah, there you go.
So the burning of libraries, the conscious dumbing down,
the destroying of knowledge.
Is a very key part of this. As I said there, that Gregory was adamant that people should think of his idea of celibacy and then prohibiting marriage for churchmen is the working, which has been very well done, is to suppress man's sexuality. All of his drives actually, but to work on sexuality, to make that demonized. And of course, if you do that, then you have control over that person, because now they'll, subliminally be identifying with other. You have subliminal control over their libido. You'll have them suppressed. This is a very important. It creates gender dichotomy.
That's a huge aspect of controlling people by suppressing sexuality.
Oh yeah, just that alone, and many books have been written, of course. This is alone a massive subject.
Yeah.
And even why the churches are designed that way, why the bishops wear the flowing robes of the female. So they're using the vagina symbol in the doorways of churches, the holy water. So in other words, they suppress your regular sexuality so that if you don't have it, you'll identify with it in the Virgin Mary. See, because you want it, you can't suppress it.
Sure. Yeah.
So you'll project it in the way that they want you to project.
Yeah.
You're a repressed person, and the repressed person is under control.
Oh my.
Where was it? It said here that in Alexandria, Ahmed Osman, the great Egyptian scholar, he said that in Alexandria, the bishop Theophilus, he was the first bishop of Alexandria, one of the first Christian bishops ever. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but Christianity grew up in Egypt.
The Coptic version?
Yeah. Well, in Alexandria.
Okay,
the first form of Christianity actually was an Egyptian religion. People who've listened to Jordan Maxwell will know that. In Alexandria, Bishop Theophilus was as ambitious as the emperor Theodosius I, who had appointed him. It was one of his zealous actions that led to the burning of an estimated 500,000 books stored in the Alexandrian library. Theophilus of Alexandria, this is in 385 to 412 AD, was one of the Orthodox leaders who represented the imperial government dispatched from Rome to impose official orthodoxy on the Alexandrian church. So in other words, Christianity arose out of the destruction of knowledge. Not just at Alexandria, but at other places as well. In the Emerald Tablets, a book by Dennis William Hawke, he said that Pope Gregory declared that all education originated with the devil, and then even outlawed the reading of the Bible by laymen.
Yeah.
This guy was so fanatical, even the Bible was not to be read. Just possessing a copy of the Bible in the vernacular translation was grounds for the death penalty.
Oh my.
Yeah. Schools, isn't it now you can be arrested for quoting the Constitution in the courts in America?
Really?
You damn right better believe it. Right? Schools and centers for learning were closed, and works of art and imagination were especially frowned upon. Hundreds of beautiful temples were leveled to the ground, and monks were assigned to defile the ground with their excrement and prevent anyone from rebuilding. Okay, this is how fanatical it can become. So we're doing good, okay. The world has already seen worse. Helen Ellerby, in The Dark Side of Christian History, she says something incredible. Gregory the Great, talking again about the same Gregory, condemned education for all but the clergy as folly and wickedness. So they don't mind if it's for a few of their insiders. He forbade laymen to read the Bible. He had the library of the Palatine Apollo burned, and he said, lest its secular literature distract the faithful from contemplation on heaven. So we can't have books, we can't have learning, but we can have faith, and we can have belief, and we can have blind obedience.
Sure.
She goes on to say that after Christians had spent years destroying books and libraries, St. John Chrysostom, the preeminent Greek father of the church, proudly declared, and this is a quote, "Every trace of the old philosophy and literature of the ancient world has vanished from the face of the earth." You know that I work a lot on writing about the Druids and the loss of the Druidic colleges, and people just cross their arms and go, "What Druidic colleges?" Okay, let me quote this again then, just in case you didn't get it. "Every trace of the old philosophy and literature of the ancient world has vanished from the face of the earth." That is what I mean. They're proud of it.
Amazing.
They did it. They unleashed the hordes.
Yeah.
Christians tore Hypatia to pieces. A woman who said, "Think for yourself." The Alexandrian prophetess. It was a Christian group that burned the Romans first and the Christians. And if you follow my work on Atonism, you'll know there's no difference between the two. The Atonists, right? The Christians burned the Library of Alexandria. That's right. This thing that we know as Christianity, this cult, couldn't survive if there was the old philosophies.
Sure.
Of the Druidic shamanic way that says all men must know selfhood. That if you're going to come to our round tables, and if you're going to come to be a key part of society, we don't want you to be a faceless, soulless minion, dribbling nonsense.
Yeah.
We want you to be a completely sane, rational, enlightened, focused, naturally empowered person. Forget about heaven, study nature. It's in front of the universal force is already put before you your greatest textbook. How can you be blind to that and then tell me